So there I was, Jake Morrison, professional janitor and part-time disaster magnate, standing in what looked like the universe's most expensive shopping mall crossed with a gladiatorial arena. The Galactic Combat Championship arena stretched out before me like some fever dream designed by aliens who clearly had too much time and not enough sense. Picture this: crystalline walls that hummed with energy, gravity fields that made my stomach do backflips, and holographic advertisements in languages that probably translated to buy Zorblex Cola or die horribly. The whole place reeked of ozone and what I can only describe as alien sweat, which, trust me, is not an improvement over regular sweat. How did I get here? Well, that's where things get interesting. See, I work for Stellar Sanitation Services, and apparently when I signed my employment contract, I didn't read the fine print. Turns out there was a clause about emergency combat substitution. Buried somewhere between must provide own toilet paper and company not responsible for tentacle injuries. The whole mess started when our company's champion, some guy named Bulk Patterson who looked like he could bench press a small moon, came down with Rigelian flu. Instead of doing the sensible thing and forfeiting, my brilliant boss decided to honor our contract by sending the next available employee. That would be me, the guy whose biggest fight was with a particularly stubborn coffee stain last Tuesday. The tournament coordinator, a creature that looked like a cross between a praying mantis and a tax auditor, handed me a data pad with all the rules. Apparently, the Galactic Combat Championship has been running for 3,000 years, bringing together the most feared warriors from across the galaxy to beat each other senseless for the entertainment of beings who probably consider genocide a spectator sport. Human Jake Morrison. The coordinator clicked in what I assumed was English. You are registered for Combat Division Alpha. No weapons, no armor, no mercy. Death is optional but encouraged. I stared at this thing's compound eyes, trying to process the fact that I was about to become the galaxy's first janitor turned gladiator. Listen, mister, I squinted at his name tag, which was written in symbols that hurt to look at. I think there's been a mistake. I clean toilets for a living. The closest I've come to combat is wrestling with a broken vacuum cleaner. The coordinator's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. No refunds. No substitutions. No exceptions. You fight, or your species gets blacklisted from 17 different trade agreements. And that's how I found myself in the competitor's briefing room, surrounded by beings that could probably use me as a toothpick. The air was thick with the kind of tension you only get when everyone in the room is mentally calculating the best way to dismember everyone else. The tournament brackets floated in the air before us, a holographic tree of violence that showed exactly who would be pulverizing whom. My name sat there at the bottom like a typo in the universe's grand plan, right next to creatures with names like Devastator Prime and the Widowmaker. I raised my hand tentatively. Excuse me, but is there maybe a beginner's division? Like for people who've never actually been in a fight? The room erupted in sounds that I interpreted as laughter, though it could have been mating calls for all I knew. A creature that looked like it was made entirely of knives turned to look at me with what I assumed were eyes. Human thinks this is joke, it rasped. Iris Sainty, human will make good appetizer. Great, I muttered. I'm not even the main course. The next few hours were dedicated to what the tournament called competitor orientation, which was basically a guided tour of all the ways I was about to die horribly. Our guide was a cheerful robot named TC7, who had apparently been programmed by someone with a very dark sense of humor. And here we have Krax the Bone Crusher, TC7 announced with the enthusiasm of a tour guide at Disney World. 8 arms, reinforced exoskeleton, and a hobby of collecting skulls from defeated opponents. His favorite food is fear, though he'll settle for calcium supplements. Krax stood about 9 feet tall and looked like someone had crossed a crab with a nightmare. Each of his 8 arms ended in claws that could probably open cans, cars, or chest cavities with equal ease. He was currently doing what I can only describe as shadow boxing, except his shadow was running away. Charming, I said weakly. I bet he's great at parties. Moving on, TC7 continued, we have Princess Vex Ara of the Mindflayer dynasty, telepathic assassin, trained from birth in 17 different martial arts, and according to her dating profile, enjoys long walks on the beach and the screams of her enemies. Princess Vexara looked almost human. If humans came with purple skin, silver hair, and eyes that seemed to look directly into your soul and find it wanting. She was meditating in a lotus position, floating 3 feet off the ground, which was just showing off if you ask me. As we passed, she opened one eye and stared at me. I felt something poking around in my head like a curious cat, and then she jerked back with a look of disgust. "Your mind is chaos," she said in a voice like silk over steel. "It is. Unpleasant." "Yeah, I get that a lot," I replied. "My therapist says it's part of my charm." Our final stop was Captain Thornspike, who looked like someone had taken a regular person and decided they needed more metal. His left arm was entirely cybernetic, his right eye glowed red, and I was pretty sure his teeth had been replaced with titanium. Military record classified at the highest levels, TC7 whispered conspiratorially. Rumor has it he once fought an entire Starfleet with nothing but a spoon and righteous anger. "What happened to the spoon?" I asked. "It was promoted to Admiral." I spent the rest of the day in what passed for a training facility, which was basically a room full of equipment designed to hurt you in educational ways. I tried lifting weights that immediately fell through the floor. I attempted to punch a training dummy that caught my fist and asked if I needed medical attention. I even tried meditation, but apparently my chakras were catastrophically misaligned according to the spiritual advisor, who was a floating crystal that spoke in colors. By evening, I had managed to achieve a new personal best in getting my ass handed to me by inanimate objects. I sat in my assigned quarters, which were basically a space hotel room if hotels were designed by beings who didn't understand human anatomy. The bed was shaped like a triangle, the shower dispensed what I hoped was water, and the television only got channels in frequencies that made my teeth itch. I called my mum, because that's what you do when you're about to become alien entertainment. "Jake, honey, how's the new job going?" she asked, and I could hear her making dinner in the background. "Oh, you know, fighting for my life against the galaxy's most dangerous predators. The usual." "That's nice, dear. Remember to eat your vegetables and try not to die horribly." "Thanks, Mom. Really feeling the support here." As I hung up, I realized that tomorrow I would be stepping into an arena to face creatures that could probably bench press a battleship. My training consisted of watching YouTube videos on self-defense, and that one time I scared away a raccoon by yelling at it. This was going to be a very short tournament. The arena was packed with beings from across the galaxy, all eager to watch the traditional slaughter that kicked off each tournament season. The crowd noise was deafening, a mixture of roars, clicks, buzzes, and what sounded like someone gargling gravel. I stood in the competitor tunnel, wearing regulation combat gear that fit me about as well as a tuxedo fits a goldfish. My first opponent was something called a Nexus Warrior, which looked like a cross between a tiger and a food processor. It had been undefeated in 700 matches, according to the announcer, who seemed way too excited about my impending doom. "Ladies, gentlemen, and ambiguous energy beings," the announcer boomed, introducing the human newcomer, Jake Morrison, professional floor cleaner and statistical impossibility. The crowd went wild, and not in a good way. I'm pretty sure I heard someone taking bets on which piece of me would hit the ground first. The Nexus Warrior prowled into the arena, its razor-sharp claws leaving gouges in the reinforced floor. It looked at me the way a cat looks at a wounded mouse, except this cat weighed about 400 pounds and had a documented taste for human flesh. The starting bell rang, and the Nexus Warrior charged at me with the kind of speed that makes cheaters look like they're stuck in traffic. I did what any rational person would do in that situation. I panicked. I jumped backward, tripped over my own feet, and went down hard. The Nexus Warrior leaped over me, expecting me to be where I was supposed to be, which was standing upright like a proper victim. Instead, it sailed over my prone form and crashed face first into the arena wall. The crowd went silent. The announcer went silent, even the Nexus Warrior went silent, mostly because it was unconscious. I said, getting to my feet and looking at my defeated opponent. Was that supposed to happen? Apparently not, because the medical team rushed out to check on the Nexus Warrior, who had given itself a concussion by running into a wall. The referee, a three-eyed slug creature in a striped shirt, raised my hand in victory while looking thoroughly confused. Winner by technical knockout, Jake Morrison. My second match was against a plasma serpent, which was exactly as terrifying as it sounds. Picture a snake the size of a subway car that could shoot lightning from its eyes. The plan was simple: don't die immediately. The plasma serpent slithered into the arena, electricity crackling around its scales like a living Tesla coil. It reared up to its full height, which was about 3 times taller than me, and prepared to turn me into a human barbecue. But here's the thing about plasma: it's basically superheated gas, which means it's really, really hot. And you know what humans do when we're nervous? We sweat. A lot. I was so terrified that I was practically a walking sprinkler system. The plasma serpent struck, shooting a bolt of pure energy directly at me. The bolt hit the cloud of moisture surrounding my sweaty, panicked form and dispersed harmlessly into steam. The serpent tried again, with the same result. Turns out, human perspiration is an excellent conductor, which disperses plasma attacks instead of absorbing them. Who knew that my overactive sweat glands would save my life? The plasma serpent, frustrated and increasingly confused, kept shooting at me while I stumbled around the arena like a drunk penguin. Each attack just created more steam, until the entire arena looked like a sauna. The serpent, being cold-blooded, couldn't handle the heat and humidity. It passed out from thermal shock. Victory number 2. And I still had no idea what I was doing. By my third match, word was getting around that the human might not be as easy to kill as everyone thought. My opponent was a crystalline berserker, a living rock formation with anger management issues and fists like sledgehammers. The berserker charged at me, swinging those massive crystal fists with enough force to pulverize concrete. I dodged frantically, and in my panic I did something that would haunt me for the rest of the tournament. I started talking. Okay, let's just calm down here, I babbled as I ducked under a swing that would have decapitated a smaller building. I'm sure we can work this out like civilized beings. Have you considered anger management classes? I hear they're very helpful for managing workplace stress and interpersonal conflicts. The berserker paused, apparently confused by my rambling. It had never encountered an opponent who tried to counsel it mid-fight. I mean, look at yourself, I continued, backing away while gesturing at the creature. You're clearly dealing with some deep-seated issues. All this violence is just a cry for help, isn't it? When did you first start feeling this rage? Was it during your crystalline adolescence? The berserker lowered its fists, its crystal features showing what might have been uncertainty. No one had ever asked about its feelings before. You know what you need? I said, gaining confidence, a good therapist and maybe some yoga. Have you tried meditation? I hear it's great for achieving inner peace and managing aggressive tendencies. The crystalline berserker sat down heavily, its massive form creating small earthquakes. It began to make sounds that I realized were sobs. Apparently, I had accidentally triggered some kind of emotional breakthrough. The referee declared me the winner by therapeutic intervention, which was apparently a first in tournament history. 3 victories, 0 actual fighting, and I was starting to think that maybe being human was some kind of cosmic cheat code. The semi-finals brought me face to face with Princess Vexara, the telepathic assassin who had looked into my mind earlier and found it less than impressive. She stood across from me in the arena, floating gracefully while I tried not to trip over my own shoelaces. "Human Jake," she said, her voice echoing directly in my brain. "I have studied your previous matches. Your victories are statistical anomalies. This ends now." "Yeah, I've been meaning to talk to someone about that, I replied, trying to ignore the fact that she was having a conversation inside my head. "Do you guys have like a statistics department? Because I'm pretty sure there's been some kind of clerical error." Princess Vexara closed her eyes and I felt her mental presence slam into my consciousness like a psychic freight train. She was trying to read my thoughts, predict my moves, and probably figure out what I had for breakfast. But here's the thing about human minds: we're basically mental chaos engines. While she was trying to sift through my thoughts, she got hit with a rapid-fire sequence of random nonsense. My brain was simultaneously worried about the fight, wondering if I'd left the stove on at home, trying to remember the lyrics to a song I heard on the radio, calculating how much I owed on my student loans, and pondering whether aliens had bathrooms. Princess Vexara staggered backward, her perfect composure cracking like a broken mirror. What is this madness? She gasped, holding her head. Your thoughts, they have no structure, no logic. It is like trying to drink from a fire hose made of pure chaos. Oh, that, I said, scratching my head. Yeah, my ex-girlfriend used to complain about that. She said talking to me was like trying to have a conversation with a broken radio that only picks up elevator music and conspiracy theories. Vexara tried again, diving deeper into my mental landscape. This time she encountered my memories of weird dreams, half-remembered movie quotes, the persistent fear that I was forgetting something important, and my ongoing internal debate about whether cereal counts as soup. She screamed and collapsed to her knees, clutching her head. Make it stop, she pleaded. The randomness, the illogical connections, the constant stream of irrelevant data. How do you function with such mental discord? Honestly, I shrugged. I just kind of roll with it. You'd be surprised how far you can get in life by winging it and hoping for the best. Princess Vexara, one of the galaxy's most feared telepaths, was defeated by the simple fact that human consciousness is basically a biological hurricane of random thoughts and half-formed ideas. She forfeited the match rather than risk permanent psychological damage from prolonged exposure to my mental chaos. As the medical team helped her to the recovery area, I heard her muttering something about humans being weapons of mass confusion, and how we should probably be classified as a psychological hazard. That's when it hit me. All my victories hadn't been luck or accident. They had been the result of humans being fundamentally incompatible with how the rest of the galaxy expected things to work. We were talking violations of universal law, biological anomalies that broke the established rules simply by existing. The Nexus warrior expected logical combat patterns, so my panicked flailing defeated it. The plasma serpent expected dry targets, so my nervous sweating neutralized its attacks. The crystalline berserker expected violence, so my impromptu therapy session threw it off balance. And Princess Vexara expected organized thoughts, so my mental chaos overloaded her telepathic abilities. Humans weren't just competing in this tournament, we were accidentally cheating by being ourselves. I looked up at the crowd, thousands of alien beings staring at me with a mixture of confusion, fear, and what might have been respect. For the first time since this whole mess started, I felt something other than panic. I felt dangerous. Folks, I said, speaking to the arena at large, I think you've all been approaching this whole fighting thing wrong. You've been trying to be logical, strategic, predictable. You know what humans call that? Boring. You prefer the chaos method. The crowd murmured uneasily. Somewhere in the stands I heard someone place a bet on the human. The odds were finally starting to turn in my favor. But first I had to face the final boss, Gorthak the Annihilator, the undefeated champion who had never lost a match in 3 centuries of competition. This was going to be interesting. The arena had been reconfigured for the championship match, expanded to 3 times its normal size to accommodate Gorthak the Annihilator. And let me tell you, the guy lived up to his name. Picture a dragon that hit the gym religiously for about 200 years, then decided it needed more teeth and armor plating. Gorthak was roughly the size of a city bus, covered in scales that looked like they were forged from dark metal, and had breath that could melt steel. He had claws the size of baseball bats, eyes like burning coals, and a roar that made the arena structure shake. This was a creature that had conquered entire star systems for fun and collected planets like some people collect stamps. The announcer's voice crackled with excitement as he introduced the champion. Ladies, gentlemen, and assorted life forms, presenting the undefeated, undisputed, and generally unpleasant champion of the galaxy, Gorthak the Annihilator, destroyer of worlds, crusher of dreams, and winner of 3 consecutive most likely to end your existence awards. The crowd went absolutely wild. Gorthak basked in the adoration, spreading his massive wings and breathing a gout of flame that scorched the arena ceiling. He was clearly enjoying the show. And his challenger, the announcer continued with considerably less enthusiasm, the human anomaly who somehow stumbled his way to the finals through a series of statistically impossible victories, Jake Morrison, a part-time janitor and full-time cosmic accident. I waved weakly at the crowd, trying not to look at the betting boards where the odds against me were so high they needed scientific notation to display them properly. Gorthak turned his burning gaze on me and spoke in a voice like an avalanche having an argument with a volcano. Human. You have entertained the crowds with your accidental victories, but this ends now. I have studied your previous matches. Your chaos will not save you from raw power. Yeah, about that, I said, my voice cracking slightly. Any chance we could just call it a draw? Maybe split the prize money? I'd be happy to take second place and a nice participation trophy. Gorthak's laugh shook dust from the arena walls. There is no second place in the championship, human. Only victory and death. Right, I was afraid you'd say that. The starting bell rang, and Gorthak immediately launched himself at me with the speed of a freight train and the subtlety of a nuclear explosion. I did what had worked so far. I panicked and did something completely irrational. I started dancing. Not good dancing, mind you. I'm talking about the kind of dancing you do when you're alone in your apartment and your favorite song comes on. The kind of dancing that should be illegal in most civilizations. I flailed my arms, kicked randomly, and moved in patterns that violated several laws of physics and at least 3 treaties governing biological weapons. Gorthak skidded to a halt, his massive claws leaving furrows in the arena floor. He stared at me with the expression of someone trying to solve a puzzle that was actively giving them a migraine. What are you doing? He rumbled, his voice filled with confusion. It's called the electric slide, I panted, still gyrating awkwardly. Well, it's my interpretation of it anyway. I'm not really sure I'm doing it right. But hey, fake it till you make it, right? Gorthak tried to attack again, but my unpredictable movements made it impossible for him to target me effectively. Every time he swung his massive claws, I would accidentally dodge by doing what I can only describe as a demented chicken dance. Stand still so I can destroy you properly, Gorthak roared in frustration. Sorry, but I'm in the zone now, I replied, transitioning into what might have been the robot if the robot was performed by someone having a seizure. This is my Jan. The crowd was dead silent, trying to process what they were witnessing. The galaxy's most feared champion was being confounded by interpretive dance performed by a human with no sense of rhythm. Gorthak began breathing fire, trying to roast me like a marshmallow. But fire attacks require you to aim at where your target is going to be, and my movements were so random that even I didn't know where I was going next. The flames kept missing me by inches as I twisted and turned in patterns that defied prediction. Getting frustrated, Gorthak decided to try a different approach. He began cursing me in what I assumed were the galaxy's most vile and offensive languages. The words hit the arena like physical forces, causing the walls to crack and several spectators to faint. But here's the thing about human profanity. We're the undisputed champions of creative swearing. We've turned cursing into an art form. Oh, you want to trade insults? I said, dodging another blast of flame while doing something that might have been the Macarena. Buddy, you picked the wrong species. We invented road rage and customer service complaints. We curse at traffic jams and broken printers with the passion of warrior poets. I let loose with a stream of profanity that would have made a sailor blush and a drill sergeant take notes. I questioned Gorthak's parentage, his personal hygiene, his intelligence, his fashion sense, and his ability to perform basic mathematical functions. I suggested anatomically impossible activities involving his own tail and recommended career changes that would be unsuitable for a being of his apparent lack of talent. Gorthak staggered backward, overwhelmed by the sheer creativity and passion of human cursing. He had heard insults from warriors across the galaxy, but nothing had prepared him for the focused artistic fury of a human who was really annoyed. How do you know so many ways to describe incompetence? He gasped. I worked in customer service for 3 years, I replied, still dancing. You learn things. Finally, In desperation, Gorthak tried his ultimate attack, a psychic roar that was supposed to drive opponents insane with fear. The sound hit me like a wave of pure terror, designed to shut down my nervous system and leave me a gibbering wreck. Instead, it triggered my anxiety response, which for humans involves thinking about everything that could possibly go wrong in any situation ever. My brain immediately started catastrophizing about the fight, my job, my student loans, climate change, whether I'd remembered to lock my car, and if that weird noise my refrigerator was making meant it was about to break down. The feedback loop of human anxiety overwhelmed Gorthak's psychic attack, turning his weapon against him. He experienced, for the first time in his 3-century career, what it was like to worry about paying bills and whether people actually liked him or were just being polite. Gorthak collapsed to the arena floor, curled up in the fetal position, muttering about mortgage payments and the existential dread of middle age. The referee, looking as confused as everyone else, counted to 10 and declared me the winner. I had defeated the galaxy's strongest champion through the power of bad dancing, creative swearing, and crippling anxiety. Humanity had officially arrived on the galactic stage, and we were apparently terrifying. The victory ceremony was held in the arena's main amphitheater, with dignitaries from across the galaxy in attendance. I stood on a platform that kept trying to adjust to my height while getting it wrong, surrounded by beings who looked at me like I was a particularly dangerous and unpredictable explosive device. The tournament director, a crystalline entity that communicated through color changes, shifted through what I assumed were the formal congratulatory hues before presenting me with the championship trophy. It was a beautiful piece of alien artistry that immediately tried to analyze my DNA when I touched it. Jake Morrison of Earth, the director announced in a voice like wind chimes in a hurricane. As the new Galactic Combat Champion, you are entitled to the traditional prizes, 10 million galactic credits, ownership of a small moon, and the ceremonial title of Supreme Galactic Overlord. The crowd applauded politely while I tried to process what I'd just heard. "Excuse me," I said, leaning toward the director. "Did you just say Supreme Galactic Overlord? Because that sounds like a job with responsibilities, and I'm more of a show up, do the bare minimum, and go home kind of guy. The title comes with executive authority over 17 star systems and the power to declare war or peace as you see fit," the director continued, apparently not hearing my protests. I looked out at the assembled crowd of alien dignitaries, all of whom were now looking at me with expressions ranging from nervous respect to barely concealed terror. Someone in the back was taking notes, probably for a report titled "How Humans Accidentally Conquered the Galaxy Through Interpretive Dance." "Right," I said slowly. "And what if I just want to go back to my janitor job? You know, clean some toilets, empty some trash cans, maybe get health insurance." The director's colors shifted to what I interpreted as confusion mixed with mild panic. The position of Supreme Galactic Overlord cannot be declined. It is a sacred duty passed down through 3 millennia of tradition. "Well, that's a problem," I said, "because I don't know the first thing about running star systems. I can barely manage my own checking account." That's when I made my first mistake as Supreme Galactic Overlord. I tried to give an acceptance speech. "Look, everyone." I began tapping the microphone that immediately started broadcasting to every inhabited system in the local cluster. "I think there's been a misunderstanding here. I'm just a regular guy who accidentally won a tournament through a series of cosmic coincidences. I don't want to rule anybody or anything. I just want to go home, watch some TV, and maybe order pizza." The crowd murmured among themselves in various languages and frequency ranges. But since I'm apparently stuck with this job, I continued, "Let me lay down some ground rules. First, everyone needs to chill out with the whole conquest and domination thing. It's 2025, people. We're past all that. Second, I'm implementing casual Fridays galaxy-wide because formal wear is uncomfortable and life's too short. Third, any species caught trying to blow up planets for fun gets a timeout." That last part was where things went sideways. Apparently, what I thought was a reasonable request for Everyone to stop destroying worlds was interpreted by several military alliances as a direct challenge to their traditional recreational activities. Within minutes of my speech, I had accidentally declared war on the Rigelian Empire, the Centauri Federation, and something called the Void Collective, which sounded made up but apparently controlled half the galaxy's dark matter supply. The director's colors were now flashing in patterns that I was pretty sure translated to "oh no, oh no, oh no" in 17 different languages. Supreme Overlord Morrison, a military advisor, whispered urgently, "Your declaration has been interpreted as an act of aggression by multiple star nations. We may have a galactic war on our hands." "What?" I said, still holding the trophy that was now actively trying to download my memories. "I just said people should stop blowing up planets. How is that controversial?" "Planet destruction is a traditional form of diplomatic expression in several cultures," the advisor explained. "By forbidding it, you have essentially told them their entire way of life is invalid." And that's how I learned that galactic politics are even more complicated and stupid than Earth politics, which I hadn't thought was possible. 3 months later, I was back on Earth, trying to return to my normal life as a janitor. The problem was that being Supreme Galactic Overlord is apparently not a job you can just quit, even if you never wanted it in the first place. Every morning, I'd arrive at work to find alien ambassadors waiting in the parking lot, wanting to discuss trade agreements or treaty negotiations. My supervisor, a guy named Bob, who still thought the biggest problem in the universe was soap scum buildup, had to install a special communication system just to handle all the diplomatic calls. "Jake," Bob said one particularly trying Tuesday, "there's a delegation of energy beings in Conference Room B who want to discuss taxation policy for the Andromeda sector. Also, someone called the hive mind of Betelgeuse is holding line 3. "Tell them I'm in a meeting," I said, pushing my mop bucket toward the men's room. "A very important meeting with some toilets that need my immediate attention." "Jake, you can't keep avoiding your galactic responsibilities. Some of these guys have been waiting for weeks." "Bob," I said, looking at him seriously, 3 months ago I was a janitor. Yesterday I had to mediate a border dispute between two species that communicate through interpretive dance and aggressive knitting. I'm not qualified for this job." "None of us are qualified for our jobs, Jake. That's what makes it interesting." As I entered the bathroom to begin my daily battle with soap scum and mysterious stains, I reflected on how my life had changed. I was simultaneously the most powerful being in the known galaxy and a guy who cleaned toilets for minimum wage. I had defeated legendary warriors through the power of human weirdness, but I still couldn't figure out how to work the office coffee machine. Somewhere in the galaxy, beings were probably still trying to understand how humans had accidentally become the dominant species through sheer, stubborn randomness. Military academies were likely studying my fighting techniques, which consisted entirely of panic, poor coordination, and creative profanity. And here I was, scrubbing toilets and wondering if the Galactic Council's health insurance plan covered therapy, because I was definitely going to need it. The really scary part: according to the reports I kept receiving, more humans were starting to show up at various galactic competitions and diplomatic functions. Apparently, word was spreading that Earth's inhabitants were some kind of unstoppable force of nature, when really we were just confused primates trying to figure out how everything worked. At this rate, humanity was going to accidentally conquer the entire universe just by showing up and being ourselves. And honestly, that thought terrified me more than any alien monster ever could. Because if there's one thing humans are really good at, it's taking a bad situation and making it exponentially worse through good intentions and poor planning. The galaxy had no idea what it was in for. It just